Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the July 2023 LAPPG meeting. It's so great to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about how to make friends with generative AI. We have Laura Pursley with us moderating. I'm very excited about that, and super excited as well for Jeff Foster and Evo Heyning. We're going to be picking brains, and we're going to be finding out so much good information about AI. So we have Laura Pursley, who is a longtime friend of LAPPG. Laura has worked in the marketing teams at Adobe, Frame.io, Light Iron, Panavision, and Sony Electronics. That's pretty much the who's who. Laura, is this your third time? Fourth time? Third time? I'm trying to think.
Fifth, perhaps?
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Okay, I'm going to have to go back and count them. But Laura is well known in the production and post community as a communications professional who connects people with the information that they want to know. And I can tell you that is absolutely accurate. And a huge welcome to Laura Pursley. Thank you so much for being here. Again, for the third, fourth, or fifth time.
Thank you so much for having me back, Wendy. I hope you don't get tired of me.
No, not at all. I absolutely love, every time you come, you bring such good information, and tonight is no exception. We have two amazing people that you're going to be sharing with us this evening. So I'm going to let you introduce them. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for everything you did for helping us put this together. And I really appreciate all your help with this and everything that you do to support the group. So with that, it's all yours.
Thank you, Wendy. And you're welcome. I am a big fan of AI. And so I'm very excited to be here today and with our two panelists. Our panelists do fairly different work, and yet they share a lot of commonalities. And in particular, both are authors and teachers who share their knowledge in different ways. So let me tell you a little bit about, first, Jeff Foster, who has more than 30 years of experience in media production. Based in Northern California, he is an award-winning producer, author, videographer, photographer, animator, editor, and aerial cinematographer. Jeff serves the broader community as a trainer and also as a contributor to ProVideoCoalition.com. Probably many of you have seen his extensive writings on AI there. He is currently finalizing VFX work for an upcoming feature film, and he also serves as senior manager and producer of video and imaging services at BioRad Laboratories in the Bay Area. Evo Heyning has been creating immersive experiences that bridge real and virtual worlds for more than 20 years. Evo specializes in a unique process of world creation that she designed into a game of reality craft. Today, Reality Craft exists as a design lab and an AI art gallery in Oakland, California, with creative and educational services provided worldwide. As a creator, interactive showrunner, and production strategist, Evo aligns a wide variety of media projects ranging from the Affordable Care Act public campaign to producing more than 500 hours of live streaming and virtual events during the pandemic. Her work focuses on metaverse media and the creative potential of interactive, participatory, volumetric, and virtual production to change our shared experiences. So thank you both, Jeff and Evo, for being here with us tonight.
Thanks, Laura.
Before we get started, I do want to share a slide with some terminology that I think will help the discussion today. I want to acknowledge that there are some fears, as we saw in the poll, about AI. It's happening very fast, the changes that we're seeing in the production and post space. It's hard to keep up with everything that's happening. It affects more than just our space. So unlike some past technological changes that we've gone through in the film community, this being AI, it also affects everything else, business and our daily lives. So there's a lot to take in. It's a little confusing, but just to set the stage, artificial intelligence, as the slide shows, is really a kind of umbrella term, and it's the whole field of utilizing computers to handle human tasks. And then within that, we have machine learning, and within that, deep learning. And those are more recent developments in computer science that use data and algorithms to predict outcomes. And then from that, we've seen what we call generative AI. So that's your ChatGPT, your Bard, DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Runway, and so many other tools, which we're going to talk about today, that are actually creating text, images, video, and audio based on data sets or on prompts that humans feed into it. So that's what we're specifically going to talk about today, is the generative AI. My first question is to Jeff. So knowing that there's some fears, in particular in the creative community, we're talking about computing programs that create art. Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room, the concern that this is going to take away jobs in production or post-production. And you wrote in a recent article that it depends on what you consider your job is. So what do you mean by that?
Well, as somebody that's pretty much a generalist, I have been my whole adult life. Part of it's my OCD, but I can't ever focus on any one thing. So I've got to do everything. I have never just done one thing. I'm not an assembly line worker. I'm not somebody who only does one thing. I don't just do editing. I don't just do shooting. I don't just do animation. It's not just one thing. So when it's one thing gives, there's something else there. In the 80s, I was a musician. I was also doing mechanical drafting. I was doing a lot of airbrush illustration. And then this computer thing came around, and it's like, oh, people don't need my artwork anymore. They have AutoCAD now, and they have, they're able to scan images and put them together in the computer and make brochures and album covers. And so I lost all of my income outside in that area unless I adapted to it. So what did I do? I hawked whatever guitars I could get rid of, and went out and got myself a little Mac SE, and I still had my stat camera. And so I was still able to do my own typesetting and things like that, but I was still waxing up boards and everything. Of course, that was long before Quark and all of that. But so I've just had to adapt time and time and time again. And I think this is just another evolution period for us for tools. And it's like, okay, so if you see that that something is going to be replacing something that you do, or could put you out of a job or whatever, find out how to capitalize on that. You find out, okay, well, let's see. I'm not going to be able to make all my money doing XYZ, whatever that is, because we don't know. It's only July. A lot can happen by December. So whatever that is, it's like you go out there and find out, how is this going to affect me? How else can I maneuver around this? You zig while they zag. And I think it's really a mindset. So you look at these as tools and an ability for me to grow in an area or to capitalize on it in another way. Or maybe now I can have a little better overhead because I don't need to hire somebody else to do this. I can also do that myself now. And so for independence, I think it's going to be really a good thing because it empowers people to do a lot more yourself and not have to rely on somebody else's schedule or pricing structure or whatever. So you can do more yourself. And I'll explain a little bit more of that. But I go into some detail of all of that in some of my articles as well. So I don't want to take up too much time expounding on that.
I love the idea of you zig when they zag. That's great. So Evo, we hear a lot of critiques that the AI isn't good enough yet. Sometimes that's said as sort of a defense. But like Jeff has written about, it can be very situation dependent. And I know you've been creating multiple types of media with AI tools for some time now. So where some other people may just be starting, this is not new territory for you. Can you describe some of your projects to the LAPPG audience?
Sure. And I can talk you through it, and I can also walk you through it as well. So I started on this path almost 20 years ago. I think like Jeff, I'm a generalist, a writer, creator, producer. I have directed my own short film as well. And I wrote a script about multiple AI and relationship with humans and nature back in 2005. And I registered it with WGA and did all the normal things to start shopping a script in Hollywood. And people had no clue what I was talking about. It was completely over their heads. The idea of relationship with our technology wasn't even really explored in most film. This was prior to cinema really exploring these ideas. And so I went back to my interactive and virtual worlds and started creating all of these ways of being. And that turned into virtual spaces that are still enduring 15 years later, and all of these other sort of explorations of the ways we participate with our technology in order to create collective intelligence, not just something artificial, but something that is a product of all of us. And so I began consulting maybe almost 20 years ago now. I had come from interactive media, but also in Hollywood, I was always trying to figure out how to get these kinds of problems solved for teams. And so I wrote a book in February that explores how any creator can use these tools. And that's what PromptCraft is here. So that book came out February 1, and I started a process of developing educational programs, but also bridging the gap between traditional media production and prompt engineering or AI production, right? Because so many of the methods we learn from each other, but they are experimental and they're iterative. And so it helps to, number one, do these things in community or with a cohort with some other people, not necessarily in your own vacuum. And also to do it on some ethical rails and to understand the implications of that work. So I started writing these kinds of endeavors, and then I began working on an AI band, an AI film project, and bringing my own stories to life, the same stories I was writing back in 2005 that I had registered back in the day as potential series. So the film project that I'm working on right now.
Are you ready to explore the limits of AI filmmaking?
Imagination is a strange thing.
It felt like, you're working with like this new magic clay.
It's limitless. It allows you to travel worlds.
Creators from around the world, pioneers, forward thinkers, creative explorers. 10 AI short films and one incredible AI movie.
Buckle up.
Let's go!
Tales and stories as old as time told again and again.
One day I woke up and saw that all my dreams became reality.
All the tools that we have available to us now is amazing because it feels like we're living in this age of magic.
For me, AI is created from the collective concussions.
It's real. It's real if you can dream it.
Some say it's magic. And the best thing, you can be a part of it.
All right. So this is White Mirror.
Join White Mirror and become a part of the AI.
You can join
era.
the Discord right now and find out more about that project. As mentioned in there, that is one of the features we're working on, but that is 15 filmmakers, about 100 people total, who are working on lots of different methods of world building, production, everything from concept all the way through to post. So I guide them. I'm a consulting and a technical producer on this, where my role is to help them figure out which tool might be right for the job, but also to figure out how to bring those together into something that is eventually useful and joyful. So we do this work on sort of young kids storytelling. I work with the same team. This is a German team called Chapter that's helping to do the film. And we're also working on apps and things that are designed for storytelling and that are working with companies like Google, but thinking about the educational market in mind. So this is the same company that owns Macmillan and Springer, some of the main imprints here in America. And we're thinking about how we're bridging the gap between media types. So publishing, film, and using these AI tools to create new worlds, new types of characters, new types of ways of being, and then restyling the work that we're already doing, right? So we're using a wide variety of tools in order to solve these kinds of problems. So we'll leave it there, but this is the kinds of stuff we're producing right now. You can see some of it's very nature oriented. I believe personally in biophilia and in using these tools in order to amplify our love of nature and thinking widely about how we're using these tools, both to inspire, but also for things like my rock band. How do we make beautiful graphics that are going to go into a concert setting down the road too? So I wanted you to see the kinds of footage we're working with right now because so much of this is raw. And these are the kinds of raw things we're getting out of Runway, out of Kyber. These things take a lot of post. And if you're trying to think about footage clips that are going from generative to final, the post-production work is sometimes incredible and much different than the kinds of things. They are similar workflows, but they are different in the same types of questions that you're asking are similar, but sometimes the methods are quite different. So we're going to stop it there, and we can explore how all of these kinds of tools come together to create things that we do together.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing all that with us. We do have a question from one of our viewers, and I'd love for you to address it at this time. The question says, isn't generative AI content generally plagiarized from others' content rather than truly generated from scratch? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's difficult to generalize because we're talking about things that are trained on specific data sets. And then we are also talking about, for example, a large language model, which might have scraped the internet or half of the internet, right? So yes, there are some tools that used all sorts of things that they found in the public domain, whether that was fair use or not is something that's going to need to be decided in court. Those tools are one portion of the whole generative media landscape. Now, I also work with self-trained models. So I might train a model for a character where all of the work is original. And especially if you're working inside a media studio, you're doing all original work to train up a model. And this is something that's happened inside studios for quite some time. It's not necessarily new this year. It's just that now we're talking about the broader impact of how all of these tools come together. Right. So tools like NVIDIA are not unfamiliar to those of us who've been working in post for some time. We are just now using NVIDIA's tools differently than we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Got it. Thank you. And Jeff, I want to throw it back over to you. So Evo mentioned a few different types of tools that she's used. And I think that you've used some of these same Gen AI tools, or maybe different ones, in your work, both as part of a marketing team for a corporation and also as part of a filmmaking team. So can you tell us about the goals of using AI in some of your projects? Like what tools did you use and how much of a learning curve was it for you?
Well, I've been using AI imaging assistance tools for over a year. Primarily one I use is Rimini Web. This tool it's an image enhancement, but it does use generative AI to fill in the gaps that aren't there. I've been using this primarily on a documentary feature that I've been working on with these two characters here. And it hasn't been publicized yet, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I think everyone will figure out who these guys are if they are older than 20, probably. So this is a before picture. This is just a rough scan from a negative. And a lot of the images I got like, I think 1,400 or more images that were either just scans from a film clip or a piece of film, or it was like somebody's Polaroid that was stuck to the bottom of a drawer. I mean, I got some horrendous stuff to have to retouch. And of course, I do a lot of retouching, and I do that primarily with the Wacom tablet and Photoshop. And for the first 2 years, I've been working on this for 4 years now. It's just now going in for conform and color. So this has been a long process, but in the last year, I've been going through and fixing a few areas that need some more detail. And such as a case like this, that is after applying some of this Rimini web and some Photoshop work to go back and forth, you can see the difference of the details that I'm able to pull out. And of course, that's not just the software. I usually will let it run. It overdoes everything. I bring it back in, float that layer on top of the original, blend in the details I want. I usually don't use more than between 50 and 70% of whatever generated image gives me. But I was able to get a lot more detail here than existed in this blown up piece of film here. So in this case, this has been a lifesaver for me to basically bring some of this imaging back to life that just didn't exist without sacrificing the feel of its nostalgic flavor of the film itself. There were a few instances where getting some more detail out, and of course I had to add in some other features like smoke because the topic. So there's a lot of manual manipulation still involved. It's nothing really super, single button push, options out there yet. And, and I don't know that they really ever will be, just because of the nature of the thing. I do use a lot of the Photoshop beta right now. I've been playing around with that a lot, and I can't wait for that to be more user friendly, because there's a lot of problems with it still. But as far as being able to extend the background of an image, I'm seeing a lot of people playing around with that. I've done a lot of testing. If you look at my last article, especially on Pro Video, I show some examples that I did at work and other places that I've done, just to see what it can do. And it's been pretty surprising how good it does. So to me, the tools are more of something that helps me do my job a little better, or a lot better. But they aren't the end all. One that is probably closer to being an end all is for our voiceover production. And I've been following these guys for a while. I talked to one of the developers last January to see where they were heading with the development of this tool. 11 Labs does an AI model of voiceover, and I haven't found anything that comes close to what they are accomplishing. One area, they do have a library of voices you can choose from. And again, go to the article, and I got a bunch of examples there. But we had a situation here where we had a professionally recorded in-studio podcast with one of our product managers at the biotech company I work at, with another scientist. And they had this really in-depth podcast that they recorded, but they forgot to get the legal notification at the end. And so sometimes we just throw one in that's somebody else has recorded, or we thought, well, let's just AI generate one. Then somebody said, why don't we clone the guy that hosted the podcast? So it's like, good idea. Let's try it. Let's see if it even comes close. So I'm going to play for you here. Just
more research and advancements are needed to truly realize the potential of cancer screening tests. To talk about this, today we're here with Peter Mainchez. So let's do a little bit of level setting. Why are we talking about biomarkers? What is the importance of them? Why is this relevant in today's context? So we have traditional chemistries, traditional assays. Why are we talking about molecular diagnostics? What is the gap that molecular diagnostics are trying to address? What are the limits?
Okay, so you get a kind of a feel for his pacing, his voice, and all that. So I tried it. Here's our little test here.
This podcast is an original creation of Biorad Laboratories. Biorad is a trademark of Biorad Laboratories Incorporated. All trademarks mentioned herein are the property of their respective owner.
So that right there said, okay, I think we can get away with this. And you guys are hearing this before he has. So hopefully nobody out there is working at Biorad right now. We're just still testing it. But the nice thing is it doesn't just spit out something. You have a lot of control while you're setting up these voices. So I went in and I nudged some of these parameters a bit. The clarity and similarity, I kind of like to leave close to 100 for cloned voices. If you really want them to sound like the person you cloned, it's going to get closer there. But if you play with the stability a bit, you can get it to be a little faster and more, clean, like it's a little more of a corporate-y sound like this.
This podcast is an original creation of Biorad Laboratories. Biorad is a trademark of Biorad Laboratories Incorporated. All trademarks mentioned herein are the property of their respective owner.
So that has a little less of its personality in it. But if you come down here and into the danger zone, into the unstable area, you can get them to relax a bit, and it's a little more casual, and he sounds a little more flippant, actually. It's kind of funny.
This podcast is an original creation of Biorad Laboratories. Biorad is a trademark of Biorad Laboratories Incorporated. All trademarks mentioned herein are the property of their respective owner.
So you have a lot of flexibility in adjusting your voices. And of course, sometimes you have to phonetically spell some words that it just can't handle. And then you can make them say just totally off the wall things like this, like he would never say this about me, but I thought it was hilarious.
And let me tell you something, Jeff Foster is one of the most respected and distinguished colleagues I've had the pleasure of working with.
So while that may be true, I don't think he would say it, at least not to my face. So as far as taking that kind of tool to enhance something that we are doing, something that we're trying to, do better, to make, just make our workflow just smoother and cleaner. I'm finding that the generative assistance tools, set extensions, things like that, are just really invaluable. And of course, I'm a big fan of Midjourney. I have been for a long time. And it just gets better and better and better. It's just as crazy as ever. It's a maniacal world. But if you want to do something kind of creative, it can also serve in that regard as well. This is a project that my wife, who's a musician, she and I are kind of doing this together. I'm just going to give you a little foreground here and then let it play. It's just a few minutes long, but it is kind of a journey starting with this little snow globe. And this is with the latest version of Midjourney that allows you to outpaint. Basically, you're zooming out. And I just had it keep regenerating and outpainting more and more and more. And I think I did 20 iterations of this, which I calculated out to be the equivalent of a 1,048,576 times zoom. So I assembled this all in After Effects. And my wife this is a work in progress, so it's going to have more. So just wanted to share this with you. We just kind of threw this together last night. So 1 a.m. Let me share this with you real quick. Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. It's a work in progress. So,
okay, yeah, I have a question. I just want to clarify. So you started with the original image.
Yes.
And all of the rest of that was generated. You are not pulling back, zooming out on a dolly. The rest doesn't exist in real life, right?
Right. I kept my original prompt in there, and I can't remember what it was now, to be honest with you, but something like, a miniature, house in a snow globe or in a globe. And it's a realistic miniature in a nature environment. I threw in all these buzzwords in there.
So the original image was generated too.
Yes. The original image of the snow globe itself was a Midjourney, and it was one of 4 choices I got. And I go, I kind of like this one. Let me see what that does. And I tried a couple of the others and played with them. And I was going out and out. And I was going, it put a globe inside a globe. It's like, let me see if I can Russian doll this thing, And so I was just I was going out, and it's like, I think I did all of that on my phone, actually. I think I was just sitting back and relaxing. I did that all on my phone and Discord. And so I'm building all this. I'm just, oh gosh, I'm going to do this and then see if I can animate it. And well, it took me a few tries with a few different kinds of these zoom outs, and After Effects wasn't having it. It was just kind of going, and then I'd go, okay. And I figured out how to get the zoom to be smoother so it wasn't staggering. Although you guys see it, it's like choppy like crazy. But when I get it finished, I'll put it up on YouTube and you guys can go see the finished thing in all its glory. But it was just one of those things it just was getting more and more deeper into the woods and more nature. And it's like, I don't know. To me, it's exciting. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to animate stuff inside too. So I can't leave anything alone. It's not going to be static. So, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. I'm curious. I use Kyber for shots like that. Mm-hmm. Which one did you end up using? Was it one of the Hugging Face tools or?
No, this is all After Effects. Just manually scaled in After Effects with masks and layers. I got 20 some layers in there. And it's 3.5 minutes long. So yeah, it's all keyframing.
I do a lot of these in Kyber, which is it's a stable diffusion version. Yeah. And I love the sort of experimental artifacts that will show up in these. So I take a zoom often of like a photograph. And then I'll do these like long stories for music video. Now I find I have to take those into Topaz, for example. I have to fix because Kyber, for those of you who haven't used Kyber AI, it's really interesting as an animation effect tool, but it's giving you a frame rate that looks jittery. And so that jittery effect is really annoying in the raw footage. And there's a fair amount of post that needs to happen to make these things work for, let's say, a music video or any sort of like YouTube releasing. I'm curious what your post-production strategies look like. I know that I'm sorry asking the question.
No, actually, I'm going to probably outline it all in a tutorial in the next couple of weeks because I don't hold anything to be really my own. I like to create stuff and go, hey, here's how I created it. Isn't this fun? So I'm kind of that way. So my next article in Pro Video will show how I did this. And I'll probably have a few more by then too, because now I'm excited to do more. So
yeah, I think it's like 300 clips in. Sure. And finding, you
get excited and new stuff happens and a new version of a tool comes out. It's I got to try that now. And yeah, it's just has unleashed a creative beast in me now to try a little of everything and just see how I can break it, so.
I think I always wanted to take on animation and it felt too hard in order to produce the works I had in mind. Really reducing the playing field. I feel like I've been an indie filmmaker for 25 years.
Sure.
But I have a love for it again that
I know. I agree. I agree. I'm passionately in love with getting a new computer, actually. But I love the process. And now I can't wait to do more. So it's exciting.
That's very inspiring. Thank you for showing us all that. We've had a number of questions and comments from our attendees, and I'm excited about that dialogue too. A couple questions I want to get to. So real quick, Tony asked about, has AI generated content been used in Unreal scene creation? So like for virtual production. And I know that I've spoken to some people who are doing that, and even one company in particular. I'm not sure if I can speak to that. So Tony, I do believe you and I are connected via LinkedIn, and if you want to reach out to me, I can say more. But Jeff and Evo, I don't know if you have anything you want to comment about AI content in Unreal scenes or in the virtual backgrounds.
Well, NVIDIA has been a fantastic leader in this space for a long time. So if you take a look at that nested concentric circles, right, they've been there for decades. And we've been using their tools in post for a long time to change the time of year or the season or the lighting or all of these other generative effects that we've come to rely on NVIDIA for. So I feel like they've obviously stepped up their game and how that they're thinking about these production tools as being media and entertainment tools, but also training tools and metaverse tools and digital twins tools and all of these other sort of subsects that also will end up in similar workflows, right? Some of you are probably touching some of that in your own work. I personally am using NVIDIA to do mostly 3D experience design and world building. I use it somewhat for generative and 3D assets, especially more than on the film side. But I maybe you're working with them more on the film side. I'm not sure. I find that they've been useful throughout for both for process, but also for building machines and making sure we have a workflow that's going to work.
Another comment by Chad. Again, I think this will be quick. We've got so many things to go through. But he asked, is anyone working on a way to verify non-AI generated assets as such? Obviously, the more real this stuff gets, the more problematic not knowing the difference might become. I guess I have heard from my former time at Adobe about the Content Authenticity Initiative to verify provenance and what is real and what is generated. I don't have a lot of specifics on where the overall standards are gelling on that yet. I think it's a work in progress. But again, if either of our panelists want to weigh in on something more they know about that.
Just that there's a handful of groups funding for this, both in the US and overseas. Here in the US, Mozilla has been a leader. They recently had a hackathon, so they're funding projects like Glaze for protecting images. However, when we're talking about film assets, it's a problem of metadata. And I mentioned this in the chat that right now we do a terrible job of crediting the 2,000 people who actually work on a movie together. Mm-hmm. And so tracing who did what on each movie and whose work was then reused, nearly impossible, in part because of the way movies and content management are currently structured.
And you already mentioned the Adobe initiative. They made that public last month. Yeah.
But AI tools could solve this problem if people choose to. But that would involve everyone in the industry deciding to use AI tools to make sure that creators get paid for their work.
Right.
Right. That's a fantastic goal. I'm not sure if we'll see it, but I am hopeful that we will.
I just hope that Apple adapts some AI to fix Siri, because she doesn't understand a word I say. I don't know why.
So speaking of hearing, and I'd like to go back to audio for a moment. Jeff, I know you gave us those multiple examples of the podcast, the real person at your company being cloned, and different ways you could adjust. I thought that the last one sounded very podcasty and the most human. But one of our audience members made a comment. I sense a disturbance in the force, as if thousands of voiceover artists suddenly cried out in pain. And something I learned about just yesterday was about James Earl Jones signing an agreement to allow his voice to be cloned and synthesized and used in perpetuity as Darth Vader, because he won't be with us forever. So that's a really interesting use of the voice cloning. And thank you, Evo, in the comments where you've talked a lot about synthesizing your own voice or creating new ones. I think everyone should look into that more because it's easy to get into the conversations that we're seeing in the chat and in some of the questions about what are the legalities here. Now, none of us are lawyers, so we probably can't provide the best advice on that matter, but you can imagine if it's contracted, as in the case with James Earl Jones, or if you are synthesizing your own voice or a wholly new voice, that is a safer area to play than if you are trying to replicate the sound of a known celebrity. So general producer's advice, don't do the latter. Start with yourself first.
Yeah, I've done a few just playing around experiments from audiobooks, things like that. I can't ever really get the well-known actor voices to sound like them. I mean, they sound-ish like them. And that may be built in too, because the earlier versions of the software back in January, February, when I was first playing with it, did remarkably well. And I think they may have bastardized code a little bit to say, okay, this is a well-known voice imprint. Let's mix it up a bit so it can't really sound like them. So I don't know, but I haven't talked to the developer since then, but I should ask them if that's what's happened, because I can't get it to work quite as well as it did earlier. But, again, consent is true for anything. My wife's a voice person, and somebody wanted to use her voice to sample back in the 90s, sample and to put into a machine, for synthesizers, sample her voice for some of the voices. And she didn't want to do it then. But again, it was like they didn't steal it, but she just chose not to. But I mean, so sampling and that type of thing has been going on for a long time anyway. Again, this isn't really new. It's just the approach is new. It's very public and it's very visible now. And, yeah, are people going to use it for nefarious reasons? You bet they will. I dread the next couple of years of advertising, if you know what I mean. So, but that's true with anything, though. People have been misusing Photoshop. People were misusing airbrush retouching back in the 70s, Bat Boy and all those National Enquirer type, photos of UFOs and aliens and everything. So, it's been done for a long time. The tools are more accessible. They're accessible on your phone, which I think is probably scarier than anybody here has the tools on their computer, is the junk that people can do on their phone and then post it like, hey, look what just happened, So to me, I think that's probably more of a danger to the public than anything we can think of here.
Exactly. Well, we are just about out of time. So I do want to just generally address some of the other questions about getting the names of some of the programs mentioned today and the groups mentioned today. We will follow up with the Wendy and Woody at LAPPG and make sure that that information goes out to you. But a key among them will be the links to Jeff's work, where he has been documenting all of these programs on his articles in Pro Video Coalition. That's an amazing resource. And we'll also be sure to send you Evo's website so you can follow all that she's creating. Any last words of wisdom from you, Evo?
Just that it is a wonder and amazing time to experiment and try new things and to build your own toolkit and to think about how you want to be creative in the world, right? These are all ways that we learn to collaborate with others and learn to play. So find a cohort, find some people you enjoy exploring some aspect of these technologies and topics with. And we look forward to seeing what you're up to at a future gathering and group.
All right. Thank you all so much. Wendy, back to you.
I would like to continue this conversation, and it's going fast. So I have a feeling we'll see you guys again real soon. And make sure you go to our YouTube channel, catch up on past meetings. Right now, we just launched Mystica Workflows. There's some really cool information. If you are a workflow person interested in workflows, this is an incredible tool that they have. I highly recommend you check it out. Make sure you subscribe when you're there, and also click the little bell icon and you'll be notified when new videos drop. And be sure to connect with us on Facebook and on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I want to do a huge thank you to all of our partners, our platinum partner, AJ Video Systems, our gold level partner, Adobe Blackmagic Design, OWC, Zeiss, Frame.io, and our silver partners, Isotope, SGO, and Media Silo by Shift Media. And we also have lots of supporting media and community partners, and we thank them as well. And you all be safe and have a great, great week ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.